Happy 4th of July to all of my subscribers and watchers in the US. Tomorrow is officially going to be the 4th, and I hope that you get to celebrate however you'd like, if you do decide to celebrate. Here in Washington, it's kind of not really a good holiday because it's we got all the trees up here, and there is most areas with a restriction or a ban on fireworks. So fireworks aren't really a thing here unless you go over to like the Space Needle. They usually do a fireworks show sometime over there. But sometimes not even that if the weather's not good. So fireworks and 4th of July is not really that big over here just because we can't really participate in the celebrations. But if you are someone who can celebrate and does, I hope that you have a lot of fun. I really love fireworks, and so I was sad when I first moved up here because I'm from Las Vegas originally, and fireworks are no problem there. Obviously the traditional ones that are up in the air are banned as always, but other than that you can do regular fireworks. And then here, there's no fireworks really, so it's kind of disappointing, but that's okay. It's not a huge deal. But hopefully you get to do fireworks if you enjoy doing fireworks. And I hope you have a great 4th. Let's go ahead and get into today's class. Welcome back, Fantasy Fiction Fanatics. It's great to see you again, and I hope you're doing well. Today's class is going to be on the next set of chapters for Magic Lost, Trouble Found from the Raine Benares series. This is going to be chapters 6 through 11. So quite a few things happen in this set of chapters. We're still kind of figuring out what's going on with the amulet that Raine's found and is wearing and is unable to take off at this point. And she's trying to find a safe place to be. As well, she's figuring out exactly what it is and why everybody seems to want it. And she's kind of getting herself into more trouble in a way by trying to figure out what she's supposed to do. But I mean, you can't really blame her. She's got to do something. Otherwise, everyone will find her, and she doesn't want that either. So hopefully you're enjoying the story so far and that you enjoyed this set of chapters. I'm really excited to go ahead and talk to you about them. So let's go ahead and get started with our recap as always. So we start off with Raine deciding to go back to Nigel's house to try and look for answers and the box in the hopes that maybe she can take off the amulet if she can put it in the box. And she ends up seeing her friend, the chief watcher, Janek, and they're talking. Obviously, she can't say too much, but she's trying to do what she can and say what she can. And he lets her into the building, into the main area to look around a bit. And unfortunately, she doesn't find the box. And she also receives this letter while she's there that is from Marcus, who is unable to lend her any of the safe houses. So he's basically like, sorry, but you're on your own. Good luck. I don't mean to kick you out, but I need all the safe houses. They're already being taken and used. So that stinks for her. And at the same time, roughly, is they find out that Nigel's been missing, but right as they're having that conversation, Nigel washes up from the river and he is unfortunately dead. So they find out what happened to Nigel at least. And before she leaves, they're talking a little bit more about the situation, trying to figure things out. And Raine's trying to like walk that line of like, what do I say, what do I don't say? And she does this seeking for a guy named Cecile, I don't know how to pronounce his name. Siseal, I think would be like Cecile or something similar to that. And when she does the seeking, she can see a lot more than she normally would. And she finds that he's been killed or taken or absorbed or something by this shadow. She doesn't know exactly what that means, but some kind of shadow or something has killed him or ended his existence in some way, however that occurred. And then after leaving Janek, she decides to go ahead and visit Tam, which was what she was already thinking before, but now she's finally making her way there. And Azahara Nuru, I think is how you say it, yes. is visiting Tam there as well, and she is a advisor to Prince Chigaru. So she finds that very interesting that the Asahara is visiting Tam and talking to him. And she's trying to go unnoticed. So after Asahara leaves is when she approaches the nightclub, Sirens, which is Tam's nightclub, and ends up wanting to speak to him. So she goes inside, and they end up talking. Of course, she's still doing this little dance of like, how much do I say? How much do I not say? How do I get information from you without relieving too much of my hand? And he wants to protect her. At least that's what he says. He wants to help her out, and he allows her to stay in his personal room to wash up and to get some rest, and he ends up leaving. Well, she's really appreciative for the place to stay. She does get some sleep, and she ends up deciding that she's going to go out. And before she goes out, she does get a letter that was left with the bartender from Oknus. And Oknus, interestingly enough, was the person she was already going to go see, so he sets up this meeting and says, meet me here, and she goes ahead to meet him, only to find that he's sold her out to some goblins who have Piaras as a bait, as it were, or as something to use to inspire goodwill. So she goes with them, and they take both of them to see Prince Chigaru, who talks to her a little bit about the amulet that she's wearing, as well as its connection to the Saghred. And he wants her to find the Saghred for him with the amulet, and saying that Saghred Nukpana would also want the same thing, but he wants her to do it for him instead of Saghred, and that he won't let her go or Piaras go until she does. Though she ends up helping Piaras and her end up working together to escape, and they do escape into the ruins where, some crazy pixies attack them, and some leeches end up attached to Raine from a bond, and they finally feel like maybe they've gotten away, except something dangerous seems to be coming towards them that scared away the other monsters. And so they're running back, and they are seeing that Chigaru is after them and might possibly come upon them. So they're kind of stuck between two sides of not good. And that is where we left at the end of that chapter, where they're both sides are kind of coming in to the point that they're at. We'll see if they actually escape in the next set of chapters, or exactly what goes on there. Okay, so I think it's a very interesting set of chapters. We've got some things that are just still building people. We've got tones that are still building what's going on and the situation. And then we also have, the adventure of her being kidnapped, and how we kind of learn a little bit about this amulet, and we learn a little bit more about Piaras. And now we're kind of in the mode of like, oh my gosh, is she going to be able to escape? How is she going to get out of this? What's going to happen from here? So we've got a little bit of everything kind of going on in this set of chapters. So, all right, I've got several different things to talk about today. Lots of little things, and the fact that I feel like there are plenty of things that are developing here, but it's not like any one thing that's like majorly developed. We got a lot of little things that are developing more and adding more interest and more depth to our story. So I just thought we'd go ahead and cover a little bit of everything. So to start off with, as is the case with other first-person point of views that we've covered, like Mercy Thompson series, is that you pretty much talk about the main character in almost every class. Or at least I find that I want to talk about the main character in every class. Because first-person point of view is really close and very much the perspective of the character that you're following. So that character, that development, how they see things, how they do things, is all saturated in that narration and in what's happening. So it's very hard not to talk about them, because literally you're seeing the perspective or seeing the adventure from their perspective. So it makes it really hard to kind of ignore them and not talk about how they've developed or how they've been interacting with the events that are going on. So hopefully you don't mind that I'm talking about Raine a lot, just like I did with the Mercy Thompson series. I talked about Mercy almost every single class. So hopefully you don't mind, and hopefully you like Raine enough that you are invested in discovering more about her and learning more about her together with me. So the first thing that I feel like really stands out in this set of chapters for Raine particularly is how cool she is under pressure. She is not fazed, not saying that she is not concerned or that she is not, in a bad situation and doesn't recognize it. She totally does. But she keeps her calm, she keeps her cool, and she doesn't, freak out about it. She's not trying to constantly escape. She's biding her time and figuring out what needs to be done, figuring out how she can learn information while she's in this situation, until she can bide her time in order to try and escape. And according to her, she's never not been able to escape, at least by the second time. She's been recaptured once, but by the second time she always gets away. So I really, really like that about her, is that she's someone who understands danger and understands what she has to do in order to move forward from that danger and to get away from it. So she's very calm, cool, and collected, even with Piaras being, a captive with her as well, and him being a little bit of a wild card. And obviously she really cares and loves him, so it could, throw her off and be like, oh my gosh, I have to do what he wants, or I have to, be submissive or whatever else. But she doesn't act that way. She's just like, okay, we're presented with this situation, let's make the most of it. So I really like that about her. As well as I really like how even though she's in this dangerous situation and Piaras is in this dangerous situation, she is still snarky and making comments that she would to anybody else. Prince Jagaro's there talking to her, and she's just asking him questions, being bold, being confrontational. She's not really caring the fact that maybe she shouldn't be saying those things at this moment. I mean, even in her thought process, she was like, I probably shouldn't say that, but oh well. So I'm somebody who really likes snarky first-person perspective characters. So I think that's one of the main reasons why I love this series so much, is because I love Raine. I love her snarkiness. I love how bold she is and cool under pressure. And I love that I get to be so up close and personal with her and see exactly how she thinks and all of that. So really strong, solid character. And we're seeing it build more here with the fact that she is so cool under pressure. Of course, we've seen her, in danger before now. We had the whole part about Simon's warehouse and the fact that she can't take off this amulet. There's a whole bunch of times that she could just lose her crap, and she doesn't. But she's never been kidnapped and had someone be a hostage to ensure her good behavior before. So I feel like this adds another side to her and shows exactly how diverse she is, in the fact that she can handle pressure and she can handle dangerous situations very calmly and still control the situation as much as she can. I also really like that she's a very good escape artist. We see that about her now, as I mentioned. She does talk about how she was captured previously, and sometimes she is recaptured after a first attempt, but never after a second attempt. She's always managed to get out of whatever situation she's in. So that shows us that she is somebody who is obviously not unfamiliar with being kidnapped and not unfamiliar with trying to escape. So this is something that's pretty natural for her. Not saying that she's, it's not bad every time she's in this situation, but that does show how she's got that development of being this cool, calm person, even in the face of being kidnapped and possibly having bad things happen to her. She knows she's been in this situation, she knows what to do, and she's just biding her time. It also says a lot about, as a seeker, what kind of job that is, where it's very dangerous and you have to be possibly kidnapped because you are dealing with whatever goods that you're trying to find. So I also really like that she's an honest person. This shows that she is a truly honest person, and the fact that she doesn't lie to Jagaro. She doesn't lie, well, not saying that she doesn't lie at all, but she doesn't lie that much to Jagaro, even though, telling him the truth doesn't really serve her in any way. She is being captured and held hostage. I mean, she doesn't really have to tell him the truth, but she does want information, and she does want to, find out some more information. So for the most part, she tells him the truth, and she doesn't see any reason not to tell him the truth. She's also very honest to Piaras. So he's been kidnapped. This is his first time being kidnapped. And he's freaking out. But even so, she doesn't coddle him and say, I know we're going to get out of here. Oh, and this has happened. And I know exactly how to get out. Or everything's going to be peachy and you're going to do great. She's very honest and is like, look, you could mess up. I could mess up. We could die. It's all a possibility. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't try and that you can't do it. So I feel like that adds a lot to her character as well, is that she's not someone who's going to coddle somebody or to try and lie and be sneaky to try and get her way. She's very honest. She's very blunt, even in the fact that you're like, hey, I could totally destroy your self-confidence right here and I could make you panic more, but I'm going to be honest and not sugarcoat it for you. So overall, I think this shows a new side of her personality. It shows, a little bit more of setup about her. So obviously we've got the Saghred that we kind of learned a little bit about, and she's attached to it through this amulet, or at least attached to the amulet. We don't really know if she's attached to the actual rock. But obviously with that situation, it's going to be dangerous. She's going to have problems. She's going to be sought after for a while now. So at the beginning here, in these first set of chapters, you have to really show what kind of person she is in order to show how she's going to handle the situations in the future. So it doesn't seem like this problem's going to go away for her anytime soon. We're really seeing no end in sight. We're really just getting answers and trying to figure out what the heck is going on. So as such, we're using this, or the writer has used this opportunity to show us as the reader, who she is and how she's going to function under pressure, how she's going to function under things going wrong. How are we going to progress with Raine as our main character? And so we're really starting to shape her. We've shaped her through the first 5 chapters, and now through these chapters, we're shaping her a little bit more and showing exactly who she is and what she's had to deal with and how she will continue to handle things in the future. Next, let's go ahead and talk about the Saghred. So, I think I'm saying that right, hopefully, Saghred. But this is a big deal because this is the whole problem that Raine is having, is this amulet that has apparently been keyed to this magical rock. And she is now linked to the item that is linked to it. And so, in many ways, a little bit indirectly, she is linked to this rock that likes to eat people's souls. No big deal, right? But now we've kind of gotten into the point where we actually know what's going on a little bit. Not saying that we know everything, not saying that we don't have more to learn, but at least we kind of understand what the amulet is and what this story is leading us toward. And that is obviously trying to get a hold of this rock, trying to maybe get Raine not attached to the amulet that is connected to this rock. It's kind of have something to do with this magical rock. That is a big deal for everybody. Literally, we've got so many sets of people wanting Raine because she has the amulet that can then find this rock. So the whole center part of this story, or the whole point of this story right now, is about this rock. Did you ever think that you were going to read a fantasy story where literally the point of interest is a rock? I know before I read this series, I did not think that was really going to be the case, but I think it's super interesting. Super, super interesting. And I think it's super interesting that this amulet is the first thing that we're connecting to. And it's connected to the rock. So we've got this amulet that doesn't seem like it makes much sense in the fact that it's very much attached to her. And you think maybe this amulet is the thing that's important. But really, the amulet is only important because it is connected to and leads us to this magical rock that can enhance people's powers. So now it's starting to make sense as to why everybody wants it, either to keep it away from other people or to be able to use it themselves, or a little bit of both. We don't really know about the Guardians much at this point because we haven't interacted with them, but we know at least the 2 set of goblins want to keep it away from each other and use it for themselves. Which, I mean, it's not really a big surprise, is it? I don't feel like it is. So Raine has already experienced some of this magical enhancement that this rock is supposed to be able to give people. So she isn't asking for any power, but even just being connected to it has now enhanced her magical abilities through this amulet. So just think, she was actually holding the rock, what that would do. Maybe nothing different, maybe a lot different, maybe it'd be a lot more. But everybody wants it for this power. But it does eat people, and if you starve it enough and you don't feed people while being attached to it long enough, it will just eat the person it's attached to, and it's that soul. So we have another added problem of the fact that if Raine doesn't do anything for this rock, is she going to be munched on herself? So I'm pretty sure she's worried about that too, and the fact that if you're connected to it, it can just decide to take you, and you have not much say in the matter. So from here, we're going to be moving forward with this information, which is important since this is going to be a central item and is a central part of this whole plot line. So we're kind of now learning a little bit more about what's going on and what Raine's going to have to do from here. We, again, like I said, don't know much about the Guardians portion in it. We know that Michael Elliser has had a couple of run-ins to try and find her magically, but we don't really know what his stake in everything is or what he plans to do. We just know the two goblins, and right now they're fighting over each other and causing Raine to have a lot of extra problems on her plate. So, and obviously, Raine doesn't want either of these goblins to have the rock. She's made that very clear, is that she doesn't want to give anybody the rock because she doesn't feel like anybody is going to use it wisely. We will see where this leads her and what she will have to do in order to keep it away from both Malsalin, the Shigaru, and the king. So I do find it super interesting that we're starting to learn a little bit more, as well as the concept of a soul-eating rock. That does appear to be at least a little bit, what's the term? Self-aware. A little bit of it having its own thoughts and feelings, since the amulet is reacting to different situations. It kind of seems like it has its own thought process and can think for itself. But we'll see how that progresses. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Saghred, and if you think that it is an interesting concept and how you are enjoying that in general. All right, next let's go ahead and talk about world building. So we don't have tons in this world building section, but we do get a little bit more building for this ruins area that she's been kidnapped in. And I thought I'd go over this a little bit with you guys, since it shows a little bit more about what kind of world this is. Of course, in the beginning of every single book or story or series, it's really important for a fantasy story to build the world that we're in. Of course, you always have to continue building the world and making more surprises and more interesting things for the readers to discover. But especially at the beginning of a book or a series, you have to do a little bit more because they know nothing about this world, unless it's like an urban fantasy where it has a lot of similar concepts to our world and you're just introducing the fantasy portion. It's really important to build a whole brand new world, because coming in as the reader, I know nothing about this world. I don't know what's possible, and I don't know how that will affect anything. So having this world building being kind of a focus for the first, maybe half of the first book is kind of important for me to then follow the rest of the story and to understand what's possible or not possible. And I think that it's been very well done so far. It's been very natural, and it doesn't seem like we're just placing in random exposition to explain things to us as the reader. And the same thing happens with this ruin section. She gets kidnapped and she gets brought here, and we're learning about what's possible in these ruins, as well as possibly other areas of this world, by them interacting with the area around it and based on what Raine knows about this area. So this area is known for a lot of creatures that are not very friendly. And we have a run-in with a couple of them. We've got these pixie sprite kind of beings that at first seem really nice. And I think it's really funny that they're naked and Raine's like, okay, say goodbye to the naked lady now, to Piaras. But we know that they have these kind of fairies or pixies or some kind of beings that are obviously multiple kinds in this world, since Raine does say it looks like it could be a sprite or a pixie kind of creature. And in the ruins, they are man-eating pixies, because they all start to swarm and want to bite Piaras' skin off. And they end up having to run for their lives. So jumping from out of the frying pan and into the fire. And they end up jumping in that lake, and they end up going down deep into the lake, trying to hold off so that way the pixies won't get to them. And they end up coming out with Raine attached with these giant leeches that are trying to suck on her. So we don't know whether those leeches are kind of supernatural or not, but they were definitely giant ones, and she had to pry them off her skin. But she didn't seem that concerned about it, so I guess that was good. I guess that's good. So we have some kind of crazy magical creatures here that are not great, and then we have some kind of more normalized type creatures that are also not great. And then we have, in the next coming chapters, we will discover even more about this world and the fact that something that was scared off those man-eating pixies seems to be coming their way. So there's obviously bigger and more horrible creatures or more horrible magic or something of that kind that is in these ruins that will then be coming for Raine, and we're going to see if she can get out of whatever trouble she's managed to get herself into. I guess it's not totally her fault, you know. I mean, she was kidnapped. She didn't have much choice. So, what do you think of this world so far? Do you like the world building that is being presented? Do you like this world? Do you think it's interesting? I am a little biased in the fact that I really like this series. I know that. And I've read this series 3 or 4 times previously. But I always think that this world is a very interesting one. I really like the different elements that come with this world, like the spell singing. I really like that, you know, we've got the 3 different kind of people. We got the goblins, the humans, and the elves, and they all live in this society together. And just these different kind of cool elements that we've seen so far, as well as even just, you know, the fact that there's a soul-sucking rock, I think is really super interesting, a fantasy element that's not used in a lot of other, you know, ideas and other stories. So I really feel like this world is pretty unique compared to other books that I've read, and I really enjoy that about it. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts, and if you have any other stories that seem similar to this that you enjoy, and so you enjoy both aspects or whatever else, I'd just love to hear about it. Okay, let's go on to the last main topic that I have, which is Piaras. So I want to talk about Piaras because the first set of chapters we introduced him, and we got a sense that he's important to Raine, but we didn't know exactly how much he's going to be ingrained in the story. So we've got a lot of times characters at any point in the story, whether it be the beginning, whether it be the end, whether it be the middle, whatever else, that, you know, they come in and they do a job for, you know, having people that exist in this world and have interactions and possibly to provide information, yada yada. But you don't always know until you continue reading how prominent that character is going to be in the story. For example, Garrett, who is her godfather. We haven't seen him yet again, so it seems like maybe he might just be part of the beginning to help her out on her way, and maybe he's not a huge portion of the story or a main character. We still don't really know that, and he could come back again. But with Piaras, we're already setting up that he is going to be a more important character to the story. Not saying that he's going to be a main character, not saying that he's going to be a character that's in there all the time, but at least we know that he's going to be not one of those characters that is just used for the one moment and then he's thrown out and we never see him again. So it does seem like he's going to have at least some kind of role in this story, because now we are fully incorporating him into the events that are going on with Raine. So now we care, you know, about his development and who he is and seeing how that's affecting the story. And we are really starting to see this establishment. So I actually think it's really interesting is that he was pretty cool as well under the pressure of being kidnapped. He's not, you know, freaking out. He's not trying to cause a muck. He's not talkative. Like, you know, some people get nervous and they just chat, and they spill all their secrets that they're not supposed to say. But he's none of those things. He is just calmly in the situation. He trusts Raine to handle it. He trusts her to be able to help get him out of it. That's at the end. He does escape with her and trusts her plan. So we can see that he's not going to be a character that's just like a fidgety, running around crazy, like, oh my gosh, and to be freaking out over little things. He's very cool. He's very calm. The only time he gets riled is when Raine Chigaro is insulting and insinuating that he's going to hurt Raine. And so he then launches himself at him, which was his one, in his opinion, also dumb mistake, in the fact that he's like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have attacked. But he just could not stand her treatment. And I think that that also shows that he is really brave, that he is very, very loyal, and is a very, very good person, because he cares more about Raine than he does himself at that point. So overall, I think it's a really strong start for Piaras, especially now that we know exactly, I mean, we already knew a little bit, but it's really established how talented his spell singing is. We already knew that he was going to be, given an interview with this really amazing, top-notch spell singing teacher. But now in action, even under pressure, at first he's kind of freaking out, but Raine helps him center himself, and he just puts all these goblins to sleep like it's easy peasy. So we understand that, yes, he is a very powerful young man here. And as he's continuing to be in the story, maybe that will matter even more down the line. So what do you think about Piaras? In fact, what do you think about a lot of these characters like Tam and Chigaru and these other people that we're seeing? I'd love to hear your thoughts and your opinions about them as well. All right, let's go ahead and just talk a little bit about the nitty gritty. So I've got 3 different things for the nitty gritty today. And the first one is that I think it's super interesting that we've got so many different politics at play in this story so far. So we've got the 2 different goblin factions, we've got the guardians, we've got different things that are going on that are affecting, Raine's decisions and affecting how she sees certain things, like, for example, with the Primaru Azahara that shows up at Tam's place. She takes notice of that, and Azahara is the one that ends up talking to Chiguru about where she's at, and all these different things. Like, the whole point of wanting this rock also is a power play for politics between the 2 goblins at least. So we don't really know what the third party politics is about. We just know that the Guardians are, a main enforcement group, but we don't really know exactly what their stake in all of this is. But there is quite a bit of politics that are coming into play for this story, and we're going to see how that gets balanced out and how that will affect things moving forward. So definitely think it's super interesting to have quite so much of it being at stake, even from the beginning. Like, a lot of times stories pop up and the politics is a play, but later down the line when things are more established. But right at the beginning, the politics are already motivating characters and motivating them to do different things. Next is, I think it's very interesting that we've had a little bit of build-up to meeting Tam, and the fact that he's mentioned several times. We know that, Raine's had some sexual encounters with him, but when you actually meet him and we have this whole encounter, you can tell that he cares about Raine, and we can tell that he likes Raine a lot. But we still can't really tell if he's a good guy or a bad guy. It seems like he could still be walking that line of where he could be on the side of good, he could be on the side of bad. We just don't totally know where his actual loyalties lie. There are, the visit from the Primaru Azahara, and we don't really know what was going on with that. We don't really know where he's off to, even though it seems like it's to help out Raine and stuff like that. But he's very flirty, very sensual, but also seems like he could possibly still be on the side of evil. But she does trust him, and so do we trust Raine, or do we trust that maybe she doesn't know everything? So I do think it's interesting that they set him up to be kind of a little bit more in the background, like kind of set up to like, okay, she's going to go see Tam, and eventually she gets there, and then it seems like it could go a little bit of either way. It's not really known right off the bat exactly who he is and how his motivations are. And last but not least, we have only had a few mentions of the Guardians, which Michael Elisir has been trying to magically figure out where she's at, magically follow her a little bit. But they haven't been really a big stake. Like, it's not like she's been having to run from any Guardians that have come to get her. We haven't seen Michael in person since she did knee him in the warehouse area. So it's pretty interesting that, all these goblins are after her and they're very much in the forefront of everything. And yet these Guardians are also a player, and they're supposed to be a major player based on how it's presented, and yet they haven't done much yet at all. So we're going to see if that ends up being more built in as we continue going, or if really it's mostly going to be focusing on the goblins. We don't really know at this point all of the pieces that are in play. We kind of have a little bit of a straggler coming on of exactly what their role is going to be, and we're going to find out what that is upcoming, hopefully. So that's all I had for this set of chapters. I hope you enjoyed this discussion. I really, really love this book series, and I hope that you're enjoying it with me as well. I'm really excited to go ahead and talk about the next chapters with you. Overall, this is a fairly, I don't want to say it's a short book or easy book, but it is one that goes a little bit quicker. I have in the past read one of these novels in like 2 days time and read through all of the books that are in there in only a short couple of weeks. So they're definitely ones that I think can get you hooked if you really end up enjoying the story. So hopefully you are enjoying it. If you've read these books before, I'd love to hear about your first impressions of them versus reading it again. And if you've catch anything new, or if you've got any new insights based on reading it a second time. And if it's your first time reading it, I'd love to hear how you're enjoying it and if you're enjoying the discussions. So, all right, before we go ahead and head out, I always feel like I find the most awkward phrases to say to do the transitions for. Sorry about that, guys. But let's do the trivia before we wrap up today's class. Last week's trivia was a question about what animals griffins are made up of. And the answer is lions, a lion and an eagle, or they have parts of both lions and eagles. So congratulations to Landon, Dan, Tasseloff, and Christian. My monster manual is around here somewhere, for getting the answer correct. Thank you to everyone who submitted answers and gave it their best shot. I really appreciate you playing with me, and hopefully you will check out the trivia again next week or this coming week. If you want to go ahead and check out the trivia and join and play with us, you can head over to the blog, fantasyfictionfanatics.net. It's going to be on that right-hand side on the desktop. You'll have to scroll down just a little bit, and it should be there on that right-hand side. If you're on mobile, you'll have to scroll almost all the way down to the bottom, but then you will see it there at the bottom. And while you're over there, if you want more content from me, you're welcome to see the blog posts where I have lots of different things that I talk about for different things on reading and writing and just fantasy, my thoughts on those things, trying to give tips and things like that for writers. I've got book reviews, book recommendations. I've got some personal things about me and my adventures with fantasy and why I like fantasy so much and different things like that. So if you'd like to see any of that, go ahead and head over there. I would love to hear what you'd like to see on the blog as well as on the channel. So don't be afraid to let me know what kind of content you'd like to see. You can comment down below if you'd like to get a hold of me. Though if that's not the best way, you can also contact me through social media. I do have a Facebook, which is /fantasyfiction1. You're welcome to follow me on there, direct message me, as well as to get updates on all things Fantasy Fiction Fanatics. You're also welcome to do so on Twitter, which is @fantasyfiction1. And again, get updates from there, as well as direct message me if those are better places for you. Though I highly recommend you joining the Discord, because we have lots of different fantasy fanatics already over there chatting, talking about different fantasy things and non-fantasy things. You can direct message me over there, get updates from when I post things, as well as chat with everybody else about what you like and don't like about fantasy, different books, and lots of different other topics, and just talk with other people who are fanatics just like you. So if you'd like to join, the link is down below. You're welcome to click on it and join. We'd be so happy to have you there. Okay, I guess that is it for me today. So I will go ahead and talk to you guys next time. Bye.